Side 3. Stanhope de Courcy answered the door to his mews house, and Gresham Hollingford, young, beautiful, and as usual with a dark cloud of anger rumbling over her head, walked in without hesitation. "Stanhope, I need to ask you a bit of a favour." "Anything. I'm in a fearfully good mood."
"Well, that makes a change," said Gresham. She heard a noise in the kitchen. "Who's here?"
"Oh, Steve came back with me."
Steve walked through carrying a tray with glasses and a bottle of champagne. He was dressed in an open-necked white shirt and immaculate white trousers. He was gay. It was painfully obvious to her now. It didn't mean Stanhope was, but it was weird. "I've got to go and look at a location for a night shoot, and my car's off the road."
"Take the Rangy."
"Okay, I'll see you later then." She gave Stanhope a kiss on the mouth. He held her tenderly, as he always did. It felt good. The sun was just going down, and the sky was a bright red colour. It was quite warm, and Gresham opened the driver's window slightly. She pulled onto the M1 and put her foot down. Before she realized what was happening, she was doing over 110 miles an hour. She slowed down to a sensible 90 and clicked on the cruise control. Less than an hour later, she pulled to a rumbling halt outside 76 Cyril Street. She took a deep breath and knocked on the door.
"Who is it?"
"It's Gresham Hollingford. Is he in there?"
"He's upstairs. Hang on a minute, I'll fetch him down."
She heard footsteps approach the front door and stood back a little. The door opened, and a man stood in front of her, in cheap elastic-waisted stretch pants, which had sagged at the knees, ghastly department store slippers, and a T-shirt that had a spaceship flying through a road sign printed on the front.
"Hello, are you—"
"I'm Ian. I met you at your party. It was a brilliant do, by the by. I never got the chance to say thanks. Do you want to come in, by the way?"
"Oh, no. I was wondering, would you like to, well, come out?"
"Sorry?" said Ian.
"You see, the thing is, well, I was intrigued to find out who you were."
"Did you Femi send you then?"
No. This is the thing, you see, I thought, well... No, I'll start again.
She was talking to the worst-dressed man she had ever encountered in her life, and she was stumbling like a 14-year-old.
"Look, I've come in my car."
"Oh, wow. A 4.6 HSE new model Rangy. Wow, is that your car?"
"Well, yes."
"Oh, wow. Can I have a ride?"
"You can drive if you like."
"Would that I had a licence. Never bothered to apply, what with no chance of owning a car. Anyway, I'm a bit of a train man myself. In fact, I was just surfing the old Nettarucci, and I came across an amazing American online journal called Track Talk."
"Yeah, trains are a gas in America."
"Don't tell me you've been on a stateside train trip."
"When I was a film student, yeah."
"Oh, wow. You were a film student?"
"Yes, National Film School. Do you know it?"
"Only through the website. I'm very interested in film and video."
He smiled again. She smiled back.
"Do you want to wait inside?"
"No, I'll sit in the car."
She watched Ian walk back into the house in the wing mirror. Was she going to drive away now and admit she'd blown it? Pay Euphemie £7,000 because she fancied the arse off this gorgeous, funny man who lived in a hovel with his mum? She gripped the steering wheel so tightly her hands hurt. Her fingers fiddled with the dangling Range Rover key fob when suddenly the passenger door opened, the interior light came on, and Ian slid into the seat beside her. She started the car.
"Ah, listen to that. As Jezza Clarkson would say, music to mine ears. A 4.6 big block V8. Beautiful."
"Another one of your friends?"
"Who?"
Jezza, or whatever his name is.
"Jeremy Clarkson? Ha! Would that he was. He presents Top Gear, for goodness sake."
"Oh, yeah, of course."
Gresham swung the car onto the Wellingborough Road.
"Where shall we go? I'm fucking starving."
"Oh,
Excuse your French.
Gresham laughed. Ian Ringfold was so utterly different to anyone she had ever met before.
Well, we could go to the Moti Matal. The old chicken korma's excellent, I hear say.
No, open the glove box. There's an RAC book in there. Look up the nearest country hotel with the most crowns.
Half an hour later, the Range Rover pulled to a halt on the gravel drive of an Elizabethan mansion. Gresham booked herself a double room. She felt dizzy, not sure what she was doing, but fearfully excited. No one in her life knew where she was. She had become completely anonymous. She eyed the room. It was perfect. A massive four-poster bed, a huge mirror in a gilt frame on the opposite wall, and a very modern bathroom leading off to the side.
Not bad for £350 a night.
Oh, look, I should go,
said Ian, his face now flushed.
Why?
Asked Gresham, completely nonplussed and slightly affronted.
Well, I hardly know you.
I want to have sex with you. Is that so very bad? Are you really telling me that sitting over there in a hotel room with me, you are going to say no?
I just don't think it's right.
Are you gay?
No. I'm just happy that on my wedding night I'll be able to look my lady wife in the eye and say, "Darling, this is the first time I've had full sex."
So let me get this straight,
said Gresham, undoing her shirt and letting it fall off her perfectly formed shoulders. What counts is penetrative, copulatory, fucking type sex?
Excuse your French, yes.
God, you are weird.
She smiled and let her skirt fall down her beautifully shaped legs. She looked at Ian. His eyes, now having lost all sense of social decorum, were firmly fixed on her wiggling torso. As if a man could say no. It was a brave attempt, and it certainly made him more attractive. But the way he was mauling her body showed that at the end of the day, they just couldn't help themselves. She felt his head slipping downwards. She strained to see what was happening. Slowly and gently he parted her legs. She lay back, a huge grin on her face.
Richard, what on earth are you doing here?
Just flew in this morning. Thought I'd keep it a surprise. For the previous 4 years, Euphemie had only ever seen him in his beloved Italy, arms brown and lean, covered in plaster dust. Now the arms were holding a huge bunch of flowers. He held her hard and for a long time. Their togetherness was interrupted when the door opened and Christine walked in carrying lunch in a big paper carrier bag. Kevin Waslig was right behind.
Richard!
Squealed Christine. He greeted her with open arms and held on to her for a surprising amount of time.
I'm Kevin,
said Kevin Waslig.
I take it you are the infamous Richard from Italy? Richard's got a whole string of exhibitions lined up all around the world, said Euphemie proudly. Oh, Richard!
Christine's hands were clasped to her bosom in ecstatic adoration.
You are so talented.
There's one more thing. Richard turned to face Euphemie. I want to marry you. Euphemie looked up at Kevin and Christine, who both stood in rapt silence, waiting to hear what she was going to say. Euphemie was desperate to blow her nose. Oh, Richard, she said.
This is a lovely piece of music.
Ian sat in the passenger seat wearing a pair of Dolce & Gabbana sunglasses and a dishevelled suit.
It's by Howard Goodall. I'm using it in my film.
Brilliant. When do we get to see this masterpiece?
How about this morning? Said Gresham.
Oh, brilliant.
Ian, will you do something for me?
Is that a good idea while you're driving?
Gresham laughed.
I was actually referring to the discretion department. I want you to promise that you'll never tell anyone about what happened with the two of us. Most of all, don't tell Euphemie.
Of course not. And talking of your half-sister, if you were to win the wager, if it was still plain for all to see that I was a tosser par excellence, You would save yourself a few grand, wouldn't you?
Oh, Ian, you fucking genius.
If you would split the savings in a 50-50 type way, I could be looking at an offline edit suite.
Gresham suddenly saw herself, sitting in the car in the sun, feeling warm and attractive, playing this gentle game with this lovely gentle man.
Okay, Ian, if you can look like you do, but make people puke with the tedium of your company, I'll do a deal. But not 50%, I'll give you 20.
20? Blimey. Let's try and push it all the way up to 30.
25%, and that's my final offer.
The spooling wheel ran out of film, and the tail end flicked loudly as Uncle Roger came to an end.
Well?
It's Major League brilliant. Richard E. Grant is so funny, he's really funny.
You didn't laugh?
I did.
Why doesn't it work?
Ah, well, you've got the scene where she gets in the little plane on the windy airfields in the wrong place. That should come earlier, so you know, she knows, Richard E. Grant's her uncle.
Of course! You fucking idiot.
Did I say something wrong?
No, you great dork brain, that's it! That's it!
She dived on him and buried her tongue in his mouth. She moved him until he was lying on the floor, then sat above him, gradually moving up until his beautiful mouth made contact with her aching sex. Simon Langham walked in eating a pret-a-manger feta cheese and Greek salad sandwich. Without any real embarrassment, Gresham stood up, leaving Ian sprawled on the floor.
We've worked it out, said Gresham. Ian and I have worked out what's wrong with the fucking film.
Ian had decided to walk from Gresham's edit suite to Euston Station. He wasn't in a rush, and he had nowhere to go particularly. He stood outside Micro Anvika and looked at the Scion P3 palm-top computer, then pulled his Access credit card from the small red leather purse his auntie had given him, and purchased it. He walked the rest of the way to Euston and sailed onto Platform 5, feeling like a man who knew how to deal with the world. He found a front-facing seat with a table, sat down, and listed his problems in 12-point Helvetica, bullet indentations, ranged left. No job. Gresham. The wager. Mum. Full-scale professional Macintosh-based edit suite. He gazed at the screen, trying to understand what was happening to his life. He suddenly realized what he had done. He'd written a list of problems without Euphemie's name attached. The biggest problem of all. Charging into his life with her strange clothes and constant desire to control him. And she'd succeeded. He realized she'd completely changed the way he saw the world. He laughed to himself. Although he felt guilty about splitting the proceeds whichever way the wager went, the fact that he'd thought of it at all gave him a warm feeling in his stomach. Ian realized for the first time in his 31 years on the planet that he liked himself. Euphemie and Richard climbed out of the small red Alfa Romeo outside the NatWest Bank on Shepperton High Street.
I haven't told you,
he said as the car locks beeped in the quiet suburban air.
I have actually lost my license.
Oh, Richard.
I got stopped outside Mercatale. I was way over the limit. My name is Richard and I'm an alcoholic. I'm driving extra carefully at the moment because I don't really want to get pulled over.
Oh, Richard, it's brilliant you faced this problem.
I know.
Christine opened the door to her flat.
Come in, come in. Excuse the mess, it's awful.
Richard offered Christine a bottle of sparkling herb-flavoured mineral water. Christine had discreetly whispered to Euphemie that she was very happy to have an alcohol-free meal. Euphemie followed Richard into the small front room, which was cluttered with knick-knacks, corn dollies, and old armchairs.
Christine, I'd really like it if you'd be involved in the wedding, said Richard out of the blue.
Oh, of course, I'd be thrilled to bits.
Richard, Euphemie found herself without the nerve to continue. There was a silence. What? Well, I haven't decided. What haven't you decided? Well, about marrying you. What?
Oh, Phemie.
I haven't actually said no, either. I just need a bit of quiet time to think about it. What with the benefit and Ian and everything. Who's Ian? A man I've been doing a project with. I can't really explain. It would sound daft.
It isn't daft at all,
Christine reassured her.
Can I explain?
At the end of the tale, Richard turned and looked at her, all anger gone. I love you so much. Tears welled up in Euphemie's eyes without any warning. She just started sobbing spontaneously. Richard sat next to her on the sofa and comforted her gently. I can wait, said Richard. I can wait till you're ready for me.
Ah,
said Christine. Ian's mum was asleep in the front room when he got in from the shops. He lugged the heavy carrier bags through the house and into the kitchen, being as quiet as the small space would allow.
Hello, Mum. Cup of tea for you.
He slid the tray onto a table he'd bought at MFI. It had come in flat-pack form and took him only 2 ticks to erect. Not bad for $24.99.
Shouldn't you be at work, dear?
I've got lots of new avenues to explore, matey dearest. Loads and tons of new opportunities. However, there is a small fly-type problemette in the old ointmenterucci.
What's that, love?
Well, the only slight drawback to the all-new improved ianringfold.com is that I have to spend a night in old Londinium.
He knew this would be a bombshell for his mother, but he thought it best to land the big one on her and then follow through with a gentler explanation. Mum, thing is, with me new job, I also have use of a rather nice flat in the Clapham area of South London. How would you feel about coming to stay the night there? His mother slowly sat up and drank some tea, her hands still shaking slightly. A stranger wouldn't notice, but Ian could see that she was really going downhill.
What's your job?
He smiled. Well, that will be telling, Mum. It's all a bit on the hush-hush side.
Nothing indecent, I hope.
To Ian, the block of 2 weeks between his conversation with his mother and the night of the benefit was a finite period of different coloured days which ended with a black line. For Euphemie, the 2 weeks had passed in a daze of arrangements, phone calls and frantic meetings. With Richard's sudden arrival in her life and bed, and the fact that she hadn't paid a bill in the flat for nearly a year, she didn't feel as if she had a lot of free time for contemplating changing the world. She still hadn't said yes, but it had become the next thing she was going to do. She would decide after the benefit, or certainly after Gresham's wedding, whatever before Christmas. At 3:15 on the afternoon of the great day, Euphemie was running around the office screaming. The phone rang.
Shit,
said Euphemie, snatching it up. Yes?
Oh, hi, Phemie. You don't usually answer.
Who is this?
It's me. I'm at Euston. I thought you said you'd meet us.
Ian! Shit!
Excuse your French.
Please don't say that.
Sorry.
Wait there, I'm getting a cab. She found a taxi on Upper Street and headed for Euston, calling the stage manager on her mobile as the cab moved off. Everything was fine. Everything was in place. The only problem the stage manager was having was that his mobile kept ringing during sound checks, and could she please relax? The cab driver waited on Eversholt Street as she dashed towards the Euston Station concourse. Suddenly she froze. There was Ian, looking wonderful, hair perfect, teeth gleaming, and a careful, loving hand helping an old woman walk slowly across the concourse. It was his mother. She walked up to them, all her previous worries wiped clean by a new monster cloud of anxiety. Ian, hi. Christ.
Shouldn't take the Lord's name in vain, love.
Mrs. Ringfold looked up from her Zimmer with a surprisingly warm smile.
We agreed Mum was coming.
Did we?
It's okay. I'll send her on to your place.
It's 3 flights up, Ian. It's not a house. Look, isn't there some other... Ian cut her off.
I can always catch the train back home. No skin off the old nose, Arucci.
No, it's okay. We'll go in the same cab. This way. It took 75 minutes of overheated discomfort to grind through the traffic and get to Clapham Common Northside. Ian walked in with his mother.
Bit of a climb there, wasn't it, Mum?
He said as he guided the exhausted woman to a chair.
Oh, it's a lovely place, dear. So much room. Wouldn't you have loved this much room when you was a kiddie, Ian?
I certainly would, Mum. I could have had some major battles with me toy soldiers in here.
He loved his soldiers. Played with them for hours as a nipper.
Euphemie smiled, automatically. There's milk in the fridge. Help yourself to anything. There's the kettle. There's clean cups in the cupboard over here.
Thank you, dear. I'll find my way around right enough. You go off and do your business. I know you don't want an old lady hanging around getting in the way.
Not at all. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Don't you worry, love. You get on. I'll put my feet up for 40 winks, then I'll sort it all out. You get off to your shindig.
Are you sure?
Yes, I'm sure.
See you later then, Mum.
Ian and Euphemie left the flat, charged down the large stairs and climbed back into the cab. Ian, I've got to say I'm not really totally happy about all this.
But you suggested it.
I know, but it's very awkward having her there.
Just ignore her. I do.
She's your mother.
Yeah, but that doesn't alter the basic fact that she's really, really senile, actually.
It's not just that, it's you, Ian. You've changed.
Of course I've changed. You changed me. Or didn't you notice?
You're different, more confident, in an annoying way.
Oh, sorry, I'm sure.
The whole thing about the money, that's very ugly, Ian.
What money?
About the wager with Gresham. Ian nodded.
Look, you're not interested in me in any other way, are you? Would we have stayed in touch? I don't think so.
The whole reason I did this was because you are a very attractive man, Ian. I know you think you're nobody and unimportant, and I know you feel uncomfortable when you receive attentions from women. Ian leant forward slowly and moved his lips to within centimetres of Euphemie's. He let her move slightly until their lips met, and they kissed, softly at first, and then passionately. This kiss was the last thing she needed, but as she held the back of Ian's wonderful head, she realized it was the first thing she wanted. Gresham Hollingford stood in the shower at her father's house and let the needles of water waste themselves against her exquisite skin. As she stepped out of the shower and wrapped herself in an enormous and expensive bath towel her mother had bought in Paris the previous weekend, her face showed her mood. Not good. It was the night of Gresham's film premiere. Uncle Roger was to get its first screening at a cinema in St. Martin's Lane, not the Leicester Square Odeon as she had hoped and dreamed. For that she blamed the useless people at Allied Fountain who hadn't booked anywhere early enough. Stanhope picked her up outside the house at 4 o'clock.
Tense?
As a naval recruit's arse. Stanhope snorted a small laugh.
Don't be. It's brilliant. Everything you've done, darling. I cannot tell you how proud I am. All I talk about at work, so I've been informed, is how talented you are.
Thanks, Stanners. The Range Rover pulled up outside the cinema, and Gresham climbed out. As she did, to her utter amazement, what seemed like 1,000 flashbulbs popped. "Are you pleased with the new film?" someone asked. "Yes, very. What was it like working with Nona Wilfred? She's absolutely brilliant." "Is Richard E. Grant coming tonight?" "Definitely." She finally managed to push her way into the cinema foyer, the door held for her by a very large security guard. In the downstairs foyer, a large group of people had already arrived. They all clapped as she appeared, and she did a small bow. As she passed her parents, her mother gave her a tissue.
"I think you've bitten your lip, dear," she said. "There's blood simply gushing down your chin."
"Shit," said Gresham.
"The door's open in 10 minutes, said one of the ushers.
"Shit, shit, shit," said Gresham. The scene backstage at the Royal Albert Hall was chaotic but very exciting. Within 10 seconds of walking through the stage door, Ian saw Ben Elton eating a celery stick, Griff Rhys-Jones laughing, Craig Charles smoking, Emma Freud and Dawn French talking, and Eddie Izzard walking down a corridor in very high-heeled boots. Ian watched Euphemie talking to people. She looked absolutely ravishing. Her long auburn hair tied up in a loose bun on the top of her head, her long, elegant neck so pale. She gave him a pile of leaflets to hand out to the audience as they entered the auditorium. She then pushed him through a door that led to a flight of stairs and into the red plush magnificence of the hall.
"Can you come with me, young man?"
He was shown to a doorway by a large woman in an International Children's Trust t-shirt. A young woman stood on the opposite side of the door to Ian, also in the regulation t-shirt, and with a handful of leaflets.
"Exciting, isn't it?" she said.
"Brilliant," said Ian.
"I only came to see Ben Elton, couldn't afford the ticket. Student."
The house was now filling up, and he checked his watch. 7:35. He had to go. He walked out into the great curved corridor outside the auditorium, pulled off his t-shirt, folded it as best he could, and stuffed it into his trouser pocket. He then walked down the magnificent staircase and out onto the street. Finding a cab was very easy. There were hundreds dropping people off outside the hall.
"The Lumiere Cinema, St. Martin's Lane, please."
By the time he arrived, the crowds were 10 deep either side of a corridor held open by brawny bouncers. Ian found the invitation Gresham had sent him. He had never, in his entire 31 years and 7 months, felt more excited and alive. To be allowed through the door. Not only that, but to be on friendly terms with the gorilla who opened it. It was better than Doom, the ultimate computer game. He continued down the bustling stairway, and then he saw her, standing there, tall and elegant and beautiful, her shoulders bare, her neck long and unbearably kissable. Gresham Hollingford, looking as if she owned the place.
"Evening, Ian. Glad you could make it,"
said Gresham quietly into his ear as they air-kissed.
"I may be calling on your services later. The projection room is through that door, as it were. I'll be in there as soon as everyone sits down."
"Okie diddly doodly."
Inside, the projectionist, a bald man in his 50s, glanced at him but said nothing. Ian heard the familiar music of the opening credits, then felt an elegantly fingered hand gently grab his hair. He turned slowly to find Gresham standing right behind him.
"I can't fucking bear it."
"Bear what?"
"They're going to hate it. I don't want to think about it. Come here. Do something to take my mind off it."
"What?"
"I want you."
"What, you mean in a sexual way?"
Gresham pulled Ian down to the sofa.
"It's so exciting. My husband-to-be is just the other side of this wall, watching my movie along with everyone I know in the world. None of them know you. We can do anything and they'll never find out."
She pulled his limp hands up and put them on her breasts. He could feel his mind slipping as the animal emerged. But it was wrong. Ian felt unhappy, awkward, uncomfortable, embarrassed, but most particularly, he felt ugly. He swung his legs off the sofa and stood up. Gresham stayed where she was, kneeling on the sofa, looking up at him in resolute disbelief.
"Fuck off!"
she said angrily.
"I'm sorry, but I'm just not like that."
"Fuck right off! I was relying on you. The only thing that's kept me going all day is the thought that I could have a session with you, and now even that is fucked up."
I'm really sorry, Gresham. I have to go.
Ian suddenly realized he wanted to be with Euphemie. He knew she would never make him feel this wretched. Ian walked back out onto the now less crowded street. The crush barriers were still in position. Some photographers were hanging around smoking, but most of the public had dispersed into the busy night. He stood out on the road and leaned towards the slow stream of traffic that was battling its way towards Trafalgar Square. A taxi pulled up.
The Royal Albert Hall, please.
Ben Elton did a storming set. He stunned the audience with his machine-gun-style delivery and left them baying for more. Hugh Laurie went on stage and bumbled beautifully. The audience loved him too. Eddie Izzard appeared next to Euphemie, looking dazzling in Gautier frock coat, painted nails, and a perfect amount of makeup.
Are you Euphemie?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Eddie.
I know.
Did you organise this?
More or less.
Well done. Brilliant night. So, without further mucking about, ladies and gentlemen, said Hugh Laurie, please welcome on stage the very lovely Eddie Izzard.
Eddie walked up the few steps, shook hands with Hugh, and took the stage. Euphemie, standing beside and slightly below him, marvelled at that ability. She could no more climb those steps than fly. The atmosphere in the Royal Albert Hall was exhilarating. Euphemie let her gaze wander around, staring at the thousands of people who were all there because of her. She had organised the whole thing from scratch. It was a sellout. Her position at the charity was assured, and everyone who had any connection to the International Children's Trust loved her. She felt warm inside. She felt happy for the first time she could remember. Maybe this was a turning point for her. It felt special enough. If only Gresham could witness this, see her now, in her element, in control. Not only that, if only Gresham knew what an amazing position Euphemie was in with the two men in her life. There was a handsome man backstage who wanted to be her husband. There was another handsome man in the auditorium who she couldn't quite seem to forget. And the kiss. It was so electric. She walked through the excited throng of people who had gathered in the green room. If only life were always this intense and this exciting. It was only when she saw Kevin and Christine that the smile was cruelly wiped off her face. They were both attending to the slumped form of someone she just couldn't quite pull into focus. Half slumped on a chair with vomit spattered down his trousers was the man who professed an undying love for her. Richard Markham was pissed out of his tiny mind. He fell onto his face and wept loudly. "What has happened, Richard?"
It's your fucking train spotter, your fancy man. I love you, and you do this to me.
"Do what?"
"Sleep with that tosser."
"Who told you I did?"
"Everyone knows. Fucking everyone. Christine told me, but don't try and blame her. Fuck."
He hung his head and groaned. "What did you say to him, Chris?"
"I didn't say you slept with him, Euphemie, you know that."
Richard's eyes wandered around the room with no particular object, but then locked onto Ian. Without saying anything, he lunged forward and smashed his large fist into Ian's face. "He's going to AA meetings," said Euphemie, wanting to defend Richard slightly.
"He bloody needs to,"
said Ian sulkily.
"He's a nutter. He should be put away."
"He's just confused. He's an artist." Euphemie swallowed hard. She didn't say any more, just watched Ian half hobble out of the room. She sighed deeply and crossed the room towards Kevin Waslick and Christine, who were still fussing over the slumped body of her future husband. Just get him out of here before he does any more damage. Ian tried to turn over in his sleep, and the realization that he couldn't, that he was in fact trapped, brought him swiftly awake. He opened one eye. The other one just wouldn't budge. He lifted his head and saw that he was lying on a sofa. The memory of where he was came back gently, like a sunny patch floating over a field on a cloudy day. He was at Euphemie's flat. Then his bladder got the better of him, and he knew he had to get up. He opened the door into the long, dimly lit corridor that ran the length of the apartment. One door was open with a light on inside. He peered in. It was a toilet. He darted inside and relieved himself. As he crept down the corridor, he heard a sound, a key turning in a lock. The front door opened at the far end, and a tall man entered wearing a smart suit. He was carrying 3 very large bags festooned with flight labels.
Hello, I'm Geoffrey.
I'm Ian.
What's that smell?
I don't know. Bit on the old pongy side, isn't it?
Ian walked up the corridor and looked into the kitchen. He was now experiencing a special moment, one he would never forget. There, only 5 feet in front of him, on the floor of a nicely decorated kitchen, was the half-burned corpse of his mother. She was lying next to the oven. It was a gas oven, and the door was open. Her head and upper body were completely burned. Her legs, left arm, and lower body were untouched.
Oh my fucking God,
said Geoffrey.
Mum, what happened?
She didn't respond.
Is she... I mean, was she your mother?
She's me mum.
Jesus! What do we do?
Euphemie suddenly appeared through the door.
What's going on?
Geoffrey, what are you doing here?
What's that bloody awful smell? Shit.
Ian felt something hot and wet on his foot. He tried to look down, but it all became too strange. The red in his vision increased. The hissing white noise in his ears reached fever pitch. There was a smell of vomit, burned flesh, and perfume. His vision pixelated, went black and white, and then closed down.
Gresham, darling. Wakey time.
Stanhope de Courcy leant across the large bed and gently shook Gresham's shoulder.
What are you doing back here?
She asked.
Well, the publicity people from Allied called me at the office. They tried to get hold of you but couldn't get a reply, so I got worried and came back.
Go on then, tell me.
Tell you what?
What have they said?
Who?
The papers, the reviews.
About Uncle Roger?
Yes, they hate it, don't they?
They don't hate it. They think Nona's very good.
She grabbed the paper from his hand and started reading it.
Okay, that was dreadful, but I'm still here. Where are the good ones?
Darling, the thing is, the company are right behind you. I had a little chat with Graham Walker-Smith this morning. He is completely dedicated to you. Now, after these reviews, I think it takes a pretty brave sort of chap to say that.
So, you think they are bad reviews?
Not bad, just a little negative.
I just want to die. The bloody film is a write-off, a tax loss, a disaster that's been waiting to happen for years. I've grown old making that damn film, and these bastards just write a couple of lines and kill it. It's so unfair. Uncle Roger is finished. That's it. And so am I. Shit!
Ian sat on the 10:03 from Euston, calling at all stations to Birmingham New Street. His mother was dead. He had spent the morning in a hospital somewhere in South London, and the afternoon with the police telling them how his mother came to be alone in a strange flat. He looked out of the window, thinking about her. The train stopped, and he got out. The air was warm and friendly. There was a light summer breeze blowing through the mirrored glass canyon of Milton Keynes Station. There on platform 3 stood Graham, Nick, and Fat Stan. The three men looked over at him and started to converse with each other.
It's me, Ian. I ringfold at rednet.co.uk.
Gone up in the owl world or some such? Asked Nick.
Yes, indeedly doodly.
Pretty smart in the clothes department,
said Graham, grinning and friendly. Ian took off his dark glasses.
Ouch,
said Stan.
A right old shiner there, my son.
Yeah, I got a wallop.
So the old website not good enough for you now, eh?
Asked Graham obscurely.
No way, Jose. I've just been a little on the busy side, what with two top-drawer ladies battling over yours truly.
Never.
Yes, indeedly doodly, Nicky boy. Plus, there's been my going to top parties up in the Big Smoke, and then, to cap it all, going back to a very nice top London flat belonging to one of the aforementioned people of the lady-type gender last night, only to find my dear old mum half incinerated on the floor of the kitchen.
Spontaneous combustion,
said Graham.
Don't think so.
Don't tell me it was an auto-light oven.
Precisely.
Bloody Ada, said Nick. Is your mum completely dead?
Completely.
Bloody Ada.
Why was your mum at this lady's flat then?
Asked Fat Stan.
I've, been doing a project with this woman. I'm not allowed to call her a lady.
Bit of a slag, is she?
No, she's really, really nice. She's called Euphemia.
She's on your webpage,
shouted Graham.
Blimey, O'Reilly, she's gorgeous.
Anyway.
What?
I don't know where to start.
So why was your mum at this flat then?
Oh, right, well, she went down to London with me because I worked at this big show, like a stand-up comedy thing for charity. So I went back to Euphemia's flat in a taxi, P40, nice new one. Red-trimmed interior, computer-controlled booking system and digital payment meter. Woke up this morning smelling something distinctly funny.
Ian sensed all was not well, and tried to work out why before anyone said anything.
I hear a rumble,
said Nick.
Incoming,
shouted Graham.
Yeah, that's a big baby,
said Fat Stan. Ian breathed a sigh of relief. Saved by a train.
What's due?
The 4:15 from Euston.
Ian didn't move. His mum was dead. The men he had deluded himself were his old friends were very much set in their ways. It wasn't that they were wrong or anything. A little loss maybe, but not bad or dangerous. Just not like him. Anymore. The next train to Northampton arrived on time, and he jumped aboard, found a seat, and tried to feel comfortable. Instead, he felt tears stream down his cheeks. He didn't sob. His eyes just ran, and he felt as miserable as he'd ever felt. Gresham felt excited at the prospect of getting out of town, opening the sunroof and letting rip on the motorway. The punters loved the film, loved Richard E. Grant, and most of all loved Nona Wilfred. But none of this had done anything to cheer her up.
I don't give a shit what the public think. I know the fucking reviewers. I've got to be nice to them next time I meet them.
By the time she got to the Wellingborough Cemetery, what had started out as a beautiful English summer day had developed into standard grey British drizzle. She noticed something in the wing mirror. Headlights flashing. A hearse pulled past her. 3 small wreaths of flowers resting on the lid, one of which read, Mum. The hearse was followed by a large black limousine. Ian Ringfold was sitting in the back, in amongst a group of ancient-looking women in black hats. Gresham pulled the Range Rover to a halt 50 yards behind them, switched the engine off, and sat in silence. When the ceremony was over, she got out of the car, pulled on a black Dolce & Gabbana quilted rainproof jacket, and walked a short distance to Ian's side.
Hi.
Bloody Ada, what are you doing here?
I wanted to see you.
Bloody Ada, it's me mum's funeral.
I know.
Well, what are you doing today?
Nothing,
said Gresham, the rain now running down her face.
I want to be with you.
Her heart jumped as she said this. She felt a rush of excitement. No one else had ever had this effect on her.
I'd have been much better off if I'd stayed with you. Wouldn't have had a thump from your famous sculptor chap.
Richard? Why did he hit you?
Although we have indulged in a portion of lip-to-lip contact, Euphemia and I are strictly adhering to the non-shagging principle in male/female business couplings.
She's such a sad act.
She's lovely.
Oh, you like her?
Of course.
Gresham felt an overwhelming urge to hold him.
Oh, Christ, Ian, I want to be with you. Come back to that hotel, Ian, right now. It can't be far away.
Would that it were another day, and that you weren't getting married, and that I had an income in the high K bracket that would support you, and that we could tie the old knot.
Are you asking me to marry you?
Look, sorry. I mean, it's just not going to happen, is it?
Isn't it?
What? Are you saying you'd marry me?
Well, if you wanted me.
Blimey.
All along I've had my life planned out for me, like my marriage to Stanhope. I haven't really done anything about it. It's all been my mum and his mum and our dads talking.
And you want to marry me? I can't even afford to buy a 10-scale radio-controlled model kit of a Range Rover, let alone the real McCoy.
Ian put his arms around her and lifted her off her feet. They clung to each other with breath-excluding vigour. Gresham's face broke into a tear-stained smile. She kissed his neck. He kissed hers.
Let's go.